Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor, the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, or recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all your South Florida sports content, including the guys from Six Rings Canes coming off of a huge win against Notre Dame. There you go, Greg. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. That's $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge. You can definitely check it out. And then if you want to cancel later, you can, but you're not going to. You got 11 different channels plus the stage shows. It's all there. Again, bypass the Apple upcharge, pay the $2.99, get access to everything, the most heat information and conversation. Also, check out Prize Picks. Football season starting up. We're lining up shows to help you through this. Use the code 5 FIVE. NFL has a game on 8 days a week, basically. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down your 5, get your 50, and learn how to play right away. So check it out. It's prizepicks.com. And now, the new intro by our guy, Mercy.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need ready to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleeping paths or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Hey, Wake County, Heat Nation, we still proudly.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. Greg Sylvander, parts are unknown. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. And today we're going to give Tyler Herro some props because CBS Sports already did that. They've been doing this series, CBSSports.com, on like 25, top 25 lists from the past 25 years. And everything from the biggest shot that was made. By the way, Ray Allen's shot finished second. We should do an episode on that too. Finished second to Kyrie Irving's 2016 final shot. And I disagree with that immensely because Kyrie's shot game was already tied. There's a lot more pressure on it, right? On a game that, I mean, the Heat were going to lose if Ray misses that shot. I don't know. I did not agree. It's my guy Brad Bodkin too, but I did not agree with that one. Others, the top 25 free agent signings in the past 25 years, and would you believe it? The Heat have 4 of the top 13. The Heat, the sleepy Heat. 4 of the top 13. That doesn't even include re-signing Dwayne. 13th, I think, was Ray. Shane was a pretty good free agent signing too. But Ray was Ray at 13. I think Jimmy was like 11, and then Bosch, and then LeBron was 1. So yeah, I mean, there was a time that he used to get guys in free agency, but you can't really get players in free agency anymore. So they haven't done it since 2019. So they're doing all these lists. One of the lists, though, that's come out, was this even CBS Sports or was this Bleacher Report? I'm sorry. It was the CBS. Okay.
No, you credited the right organization.
Okay. Yeah, because everybody's doing these lists now. But anyway, they did a list of the best draft pick for every particular year. And by the way, Jimmy Butler,
by the way.
Sam Quinn. Yeah, and I know Heat fans have their problems with him, but he did give one of the Heat players some credit. But actually, he gave a couple, although there were some players drafted on there that ended up on the Heat, but they were not the ones to draft him. Jimmy Butler was considered the best draft pick of his particular year. But then you get to 2019, and he has Tyler Herro as the best pick of that draft. Now, that does not mean that Tyler Herro is the best player to come out of that draft necessarily, but they have him as the best pick based on where he was chosen, the circumstances, and all that. And of course, Tyler went 13th in that draft. Let me go through some of the players before we get to Tyler who were drafted ahead of him and maybe why Sam Quinn didn't go with him. He does give an explanation for this in some ways, but if you were to just look at pure statistical impact, value over replacement player is one way to measure this, I guess. And this is on Basketball Reference. The two top picks actually have provided the most of that, which is Zion Williamson and Ja Morant. But both have had issues. Zion has had an issue with eating and staying on the court, injuries, and Ja's had some of the off the court stuff and injuries that has set him back a little bit. But by the way, third in VORP, okay, again, value over replacement player from that particular draft class was Cam Johnson, who actually that pick was ridiculed at the time. James Jones took him for the Suns, and he was considered to be sort of taken too high. And then, by the way, fourth in VORP from that draft class is Tyler Herro, 8.0. And then if you go a little bit further on this, points per game from that draft. First, Zion Williamson, 24.7. Ja Morant, 22.6. Tyler Herro, 19.4. Darius Garland, 18.9. And RJ Barrett, 18.8. Of those 5 players, Tyler Herro is the only one who was not picked in the top 5. Otherwise, was Zion was first, Ja was second, RJ Barrett was third. DeAndre Hunter, who's 9th in points per game, does other things. Obviously, he's now with Cleveland. He's 9th in that category. Was picked 4th, and Darius Garland picked 5th, but is 4th in that category. So, if you're just talking about scoring, Greg, Tyler Herro has been productive as anybody in the draft class, other than the top 2, who have, by the way, played fewer games than Tyler.
Yeah. I mean, Zion has played fewer games than Bruno Fernando and Ty Jerome, just to give that a little perspective. So, like, Zion as a scorer, I'm not willing to say he's a better scorer than Tyler, but Ja Morant, I'll give CBS that.
I mean, I would say Zion if he can stay on the court, but I don't know if we're ever going to see that. Just here's the thing. I mean, one of the knocks against Tyler, there's a lot of knocks. One is defense, one is playoffs, and one is availability. Tyler has played 361 games. Ja Morant has played 307. I want to repeat that. Tyler Herro has played 54 more games than Ja Morant. He's played 147 more games than Zion Williamson. He's played 34 more games than DeAndre Hunter, who was picked 4th. He's played fewer games than Kobe White, but has overall been more productive. Kobe White was taken 7th overall. Tyler's averaged 19.4 points. Kobe's averaged 15.2. And Tyler's splits are better. 45%, 38%. Kobe's are 43%, 37%. By the way, the guy who sneaks up in here from the bottom of the first round is Jordan Poole, who's 6th in points per game, but of course much less efficient than Tyler. He has won a championship, but I don't know if we're giving him credit for that. He's played more games than Tyler. I guess the overall point here is, and again, I get what some Heat fans' frustrations are as far as what the contract may be, and the defensive limitations, which are really not Tyler's fault, or the playoff thing. But if you're just talking about like what we expected when he was drafted, when his comp was Nick Stauskas in a lot of places.
Yeah. JJ Redick was like the highest upside we were getting.
And right. He's a better player than JJ Redick. Like I don't than ever was, even though JJ was a very good shooter. Like I think JJ would admit Tyler's a better player. So I mean, is this a little bit like too much like forest from the trees? Heat fans are a little bit too close to this to actually appreciate what Tyler's accomplished so far in his career?
I think so. I think that has a lot to do with it. The other part of it is that the playoff thing, that stuff follows you and it lingers. And so I think that is another thing that Heat fans they tend to not want to let go of some of the playoff performances. And that's the next step in the evolution of Tyler's game, is to, I don't think it's to shoulder more of a scoring burden. He's already doing that. He showed he can do that. It's more about getting to a place where he can do it when it matters most. And something that Sam Quinn mentioned in the commentary in the article, but I think it's also, it illustrates kind of why we're highlighting Herro from this draft, is like Darius Garland. Is he a better player than Tyler Herro? I guess you could argue that he is, but is he 8 draft slots better than Tyler Herro? I don't know that that's the case. And so when you just look from a value perspective, we could do this with Bam's draft too, by the way.
We could.
Tyler, I mean, just as a value pick, the Heat have proven that they can find all-stars with late lottery picks. And I think that Heat fans also get frustrated when they think how well Miami has drafted since, let's just say, the Bam pick, for instance. The fact that they never pick very high, because that's obviously a strength that they have, and they haven't necessarily leaned into that by trying to get a top 5 pick, for instance, because they found Tyler Herro's in the late lottery.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this, like, okay, so let's make the Garland comparison here, right? Because I know this came up in the playoffs. Darius Garland and Tyler Herro are asked to do completely different things for their teams. Like, honestly, like Darius Garland missed the last 2 games of that series against the Heat. And I know the Heat were a mess, and I know Tyler didn't play well. But they didn't miss him at all. In fact, not only did they not miss Darius Garland at all, okay, and there are some skills that he has that Tyler doesn't have. I also think there's some that Tyler has that Darius Garland doesn't have. But not only did they not miss him, but Kyle Anderson came out and said after the series that we actually thought our chances improved when Darius Garland went out.
Yeah.
So I know that Garland made the crack about going at Herro, but the Heat were going to go at Garland. So but Garland can go a week without producing, and you have Donovan Mitchell, who is a top 20 player in the league, I think maybe top 15. And then you have Evan Mobley, who was a top 5 pick. And you have a strong supporting cast there. Like, they don't miss Darius Garland. If Tyler goes out, like, who on this team was going to score last year, particularly after Jimmy quit? Like, right? Like, so I just don't think the expectation level is fair here from some. And I understand the issues with saying Tyler Herro is going to be your best player and you're going to win anything significant. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Okay. I think he could be part of a group, okay, and they need one more guy in there, a premium scorer, I think. Powell's going to help, but I'm talking about a guy who can just go get his at any time, get to the line, has to be double teamed. Like, they need that, and if Tyler is playing off of that guy, I think this looks different. But what they're expecting him to do compared to what Darius Garland is expecting to do is not the same. And by the way, RJ Barrett, okay, now I know there was this debate about, and RJ Barrett got an extension the same time Tyler did. There's this debate about, but look, I mean, to be honest, the Knicks and Toronto have both kind of decided, like, no, like, if we're going to go anywhere, he's not that guy. He's a good player, but he's not that guy. So that's why I think in context here, as we look at this, it doesn't mean you give Tyler Herro $50 million just because he's been the best pick of his draft. But I do think you can make the argument he's been the best pick of his draft. I think that's a reasonable argument, which CBS Sports has made here.
Yeah, I mean, the value component helps Tyler tremendously, because I think it's hard to argue that peak level Ja Morant is obviously like a different animal in certain ways, and just the way but he hasn't won anything more than Tyler has. Tyler has played in bigger games than Ja Morant has. I think it's interesting too, to your point earlier, and shout out to the listeners who always say that I say to your point, RJ Barrett, first in minutes, he's first in points, he's third in rebounds, and he just keeps kind of like not finding a home. And like, I just think that that's an interesting thing from a guy like RJ Barrett, who's been available a ton. You know, when we look at all these guys, he is 5th in games played. But hasn't found a home, hasn't really found a role that works perfectly for him. I feel like Tyler is further developed than a lot of these guys. Jordan Poole has kind of landed as like scorer on bad team. And Tyler now, like the next step, Ethan, is basically Tyler has to beat the allegations that he's not a Jordan Poole-like player where he's a top
Right.
scorer on a bad team.
I think Tyler Herro can be a top scorer on a mid team. I think that's kind of where we're at, right? Like but his efficiency is better than Poole's has been, and Poole's going to get credit for performing in the playoffs. But honestly, if Tyler was healthy, and that's the big caveat here, if Tyler was healthy, playing in the Jordan Poole role with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, I think you would have gotten more efficient production than you got for Jordan Poole. So I think we want to do this because there's some nuance to this debate. It does not mean you just, you give him $50 million, you give Bam $50 million, and and where are you getting? You're getting to the 7th seed, like at best, right? Like that's pretty much what's been shown here. But it also doesn't mean that this is a guy that you give away because his archetype is outdated, which is what some are saying. But again, you look at this draft, there are a lot of teams that would have wished they would have taken Tyler Herro, okay, or would have moved up to take Tyler Herro. And before we go to break, and we'll go to this on the other side, the player that most Heat fans wanted, do you remember who it was? Your guy Nikias wanted him too. You remember who most Heat fans wanted? He ended up going 15th to Detroit.
Oh yeah, Sekou.
Do you know where Sekou ranks in terms of VORP from this draft class?
The rock bottom.
Dead last.
I did not look at the stat sheet. I just picked it. I figured that it had to be bad because he's not in the league anymore.
Okay, the 3 worst in terms of that particular category, VORP, okay, value over replacement player, the 3 worst, okay? Sekou, who Heat fans wanted over Tyler, who was picked 15th. The next worst, Cam Reddish, who was picked 10th, who's now been on like 12 teams. And the next worst is out of the league also. Jarrett Culver, picked 6th overall. Okay?
I thought he was going to be good too.
I did also. But those 3 guys were all players that I heard Heat fans talking about, okay? Sekou, nobody thought Culver was going to get to them, but they thought Reddish could get to them because he wasn't as ballyhooed as some of the other Duke guys that came out that year. And Tyler, not only is he been better than them, all 3 of them have been bad NBA players. Mm-hmm. Like bad NBA players, like unable to find a role. And Tyler Herro's in the All-Star game, and we've got Heat fans complaining about Tyler Herro all day long. There should be a little bit of balance to this debate, okay? So we'll get to a little bit more about it on the other side. All right, here's the thing. I mean, again, I'm in pain sometimes when I hear some of these debates on Twitter. And so I might reach out to them as well. Okay. Actually, if I had a car accident, that's when I would definitely reach out to them. It's 305-800-PAIN. That's 305-800-PAIN. Why do you reach out to them? They're available 24/7. By the way, based here in Doral. Okay, so very close to where a lot of you folks live. Always ready to take your call after an accident. They'll give you immediate attention, a fast connection with trusted doctors and attorneys. They've got a community focus, a local brand committed to Miami-Dade and South Florida. But you can reach out to them if you're in Broward like me as well. Trust and credibility, Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating, and they are accident specialists, car accidents, personal injuries, and related legal matters. So check it out. The number itself is the brand, and we're going to be doing some podcasting from there. I got a podcast studio there as well. Check it out. It's 305-800-PAIN. Again, that's 305-800-PAIN. Okay, so do you think that this podcast is going to make any difference for those who are set on one side or the other of the Tyler Herro debate?
No, I think that the extension is not only making fans, I guess, cringe a little bit, thinking about what that could look like, but also throughout the league. Like I would be interested in what kind of offers Miami would get for Tyler right now, because I would say he's at his best as a player right now. But I'd be interested if they went shopping with him, what he would be worth around the league. And I think that the Heat fans think like that as well. I'm not an advocate necessarily that they should trade him for just like draft capital. Like there's some fans that really want to lean in that direction, and I know that that's not viable. It's more of, I don't know that Tyler is valued by his own fan base, but also the league is in a weird place with players that play like Tyler. And so it's incumbent on him to kind of break out of that shell. And the cool thing about Tyler has been every time he's been called out or
Yeah.
been doubted in his career, he's responded really, really well. So there's nothing to suggest he can't beat these allegations, but that there's just an element of this that I think not only fans but also the league at large doesn't necessarily value the Tyler archetype. Is that too
No,
easy?
I think we saw it this offseason where the only one of that quote unquote archetype who's a little bit of a different player, but actually got traded for value was Desmond Bain. The others, pool dumped basically again. Anthony Simons, I mean, Boston got him without really any intention to keep him. Like they're going to end up moving him. There's another one, I'm sorry, that is slipping my mind right now, but there were four guys that were perceived as scorers first that ended up getting moved. I do think it'll swing back a little bit because teams ultimately end up needing offense and then they want to go a different direction. But there has been a move away from that type of player who's perceived to be better on offense than defense and takes a lot of shots. The thing about Tyler, though, is he doesn't get less efficient when he shoots more. That has not been the issue. Like this idea of him being a chucker is just not supported by the statistics. Like he'll have one bad game and everybody points to it, but then you look at the overall and he wasn't that far off from 50, 40, 90 last year. Like I get he didn't get there, but he wasn't like a moonshot away from it. It was, so I just think I think it's a little bit disingenuous to categorize him that way. He had to shoot more last year because they had nobody else to shoot. Now, the other criticisms, the one about being available, okay. I mean, some of that is luck, and I've always said that. But he did put in the work, and he was available as much as any Heat player was last year. Okay,
He wasn't
the playoff
fragile.
thing, he wasn't fragile.
Called him fragile.
Right, and unlike Jimmy, who was fragile in the way that he reacted to the way that he was called out, Tyler was not. Like you said, he worked. I just think the thing about the playoffs, okay, is a tough one because one year he got hurt, right? Another year he got hurt. Then they won without him, but I don't know that his presence would have kept them from winning. That Jimmy was on such a tear through the first two rounds that I like playing Tyler was going to hold Jimmy back. I don't really playing Tyler ahead of Strus or Vincent. I don't see it. Okay, so yeah, you can't give Tyler credit for that, but you also I don't think it shouldn't be a demerit against his record. Okay,
Agreed.
and then the other two times he's been in these playoff situations lately, he was there without any help. Like the one year Jimmy got hurt in the play-in, right? And Tyler had one brilliant game and four bad games. And then this past year, like they were all dogs. Like we could, like we looked. Eternal and I were like, who played hard in that series consistently? Like who didn't get in their head? Like we came up with like Davion and like maybe Jovic. Like the rest, Bam did not play well. Wiggins was awful. Okay. Like
Grady and I touched on it on the Kalo Ware Improvement podcast that like it's hard to pick back up when that's the lasting memory of this team from last season. It ended badly.
Where was yanked by Spo?
Correct.
So like again, so it's all coming down. So Tyler was going to beat that team by himself when they were constantly blitzing. Now, look, him getting attacked on defense time after time after time, that's problematic. There's no way around that. Like, I don't think it's an effort thing. It's just we can't ignore the tape does not lie on that. Okay. But as far as giving him a hard time for not scoring 35 and carrying them against a Cleveland team they weren't going to beat anyway, I think some of the playoff stuff, again, that requires a little bit of nuance. I just think the interesting thing about his draft class, first thing, let's acknowledge it didn't turn out to be a great draft class. I do think he's the best pick in it based on value. But if you look at that draft class, again, the top two picks, who are both talented guys, have both had issues of one kind or another. There's not a single player in this draft that would command more than one first-round pick in a trade. And we've seen it because DeAndre Hunter was traded, didn't command more than that. Ja, maybe, but I feel like a lot of teams would not take him on. Okay. I think he's probably worth it talent-wise, but and Zion ain't getting you more than a first-round pick at this point. I don't know that he even gets your first-round pick. Garland, probably one first. Maybe he's the one. As I said, Hunter didn't get it. Barrett has been traded with pieces,
yeah,
like to get Anunoby, right? Traded with quickly, and And the rest of this, I mean, Kobe White wouldn't get you maybe a low first round pick from a team that really needs scoring. Hachimura has been moved already. Reddish has been all over the place. Cam Johnson was just traded, basically straight up for Michael Porter Jr. So what I'm saying, this was not a great draft. Okay, there's some names in it, but I think in total, and now it's 2019. Like it's been long enough. Like after 3-4 years, you kind of know what a draft is. And Tyler Herro has been a very, very, very good pick. Okay, no arguments with that. And the only argument I'll let you close that Heat fans can have with it is that he was such a good pick that the Heat front office has gotten so wed to him that it kind of puts you in a position where you can't really go any further, which is a similar argument to what's made about the guy that I compare him to the most in South Florida sports in terms of polarization, which is Tua, which is that good pick. You can't argue with it unless you really wanted Herbert. He's the best quarterback the Dolphins have had since Dan. Okay, I don't think anybody can question that either. I love Jay Fiedler, but no. Okay, Pennington was 1 year. Okay, he's right, but the argument is sometimes when you get a player who's pretty good, but he's not elite, and then you get wed to that player, and then you don't trade or move that player, and then you pay that player, then you get stuck into this spot of kind of mediocrity. And that, I think, is the one thing Heat fans could argue, but you can't argue that Tyler Herro was a bad draft pick. That's just stupid.
No, the thing that people are going to continue to argue, I think, comes down to during the Jimmy Butler era, which coincided with Tyler's first season, that just inherently that statement means that Tyler was not on the same timeline as Jimmy Butler. And so there's also going to be fans who ask, was there the opportunity to move Tyler Herro for a more win now piece during that era? And what would that trade look like? I don't know that he ever when do you think he had his most trade value? Right after the 6th Man of the Year season? Because in his rookie year, I know that Oklahoma City, before he was even played he hadn't even played a game yet. And Oklahoma City was very much interested in him. And that, obviously didn't come to fruition with I think that was the Westbrook talks, right? But do you think, when was he most valuable as a trade asset?
I think this gets colored because his most prominent role where everybody saw him was in the bubble as a rookie. And yet he's so much of a better player now than he was then. And if people watched him, if you go back and watch the highlights from that, it's not even close, but it's just that nobody expected it then, right? The Heat were making this run. They had this rookie. But the reality is Goran Dragic, okay, was driving that team with Jimmy Butler, okay? It wasn't Tyler. Tyler had the game. But it was like, oh, my God, look what he's doing for rookie. That was great. And also, by the way, Kendrick Nunn was their best rookie for the first 2 months of the season. But then he went in the tank. And so then when Herro started to elevate a little bit, it looked a little bit more pronounced, right? Then Nunn had COVID and all kinds of, Tyler had COVID, I think, too. But Nunn, it was a whole thing. He wasn't up with the team in Orlando in the bubble at first. So Tyler's season got blown up, okay? And then it was like, well, look what he did as a rookie. And obviously, look, he's an anomaly too, okay? He's a white American basketball player, okay? Who is playing at a reasonably high level. And we have to acknowledge that. That is part of the polarization here. There's no question on both sides, by the way. Okay. So, I think that played into it, but probably the 6-man season, I would think. And it probably would have been some team that might have seen, hey, wait, he's a 6-man there. We can make him higher. But he's a better player now than he was then, too. He has gotten better every single year, and he was more durable this past year. But there's always going to be this thing, well, he can't really get that much better because his skill development aside, he has physical limitations where he's not going to be a guy who can carry you on both ends of the floor deep into the playoffs. That's a reasonable thing to believe and say. Do I think right now, do I think a team would give up 2 first-round picks for him? I think from a talent perspective, some team might do that. I think the problem another team would have is the same problem the Heat have is, okay, well, then you got to pay him. Mm-hmm. So I think that diminishes his value in that regard because a team, not only do you need to commit 2 first-round picks, but then you need to commit, $45-50 million a year. And then it's like, okay, well, where are we going with this? We have to have a team that already has a salary structure in place where we can accommodate that. And he's the piece. Orlando basically made that decision with Desmond Bane. They made that decision. Their decision is, okay, we have Wagner, we have Paolo, we have Suggs. We're ready to take the next step. We're going to dump the KCP contract. We're going to which is kind of worth a first round pick to them to just be able to dump the deal that wasn't working. And we're going to trade a couple more first round picks to get Bane. And he has a contract that's sizable, but we can accommodate it right now before our extensions blow up. Like, you need a team like that. Okay,
and
to
he's
decide
got a few years left on his deal too. That's like a key point to it all.
Right. Right.
And I also think the notion that the Heat are wed to Tyler Herro in a way that would make them like, I guess the way that fans kind of frame it sometimes, and this is a loud minority on social media, is that that the Heat like wouldn't deal Tyler. I don't think that's the case. I think if the right deal presented itself, the Heat are not. I think they're way more attached to Bam Adebayo than they are Tyler Herro. But I also, by the same token, they're not going to just dump him for nothing. So I think and they're not going to just trade him for future assets. Like, that's just not how the Heat work. So I think you just kind of have to ride it out. And to your point earlier about his contract, it's probably a situation where you're going to pay him a little more than you like to pay him, but you're going to have to look around your locker room and ask who are your better options. And that's the work the front office still has to do.
And I think, as I'll close this out, I think that the problem that Tyler has faced from a public perception standpoint, a lot of it is because of that loud minority on Twitter that thinks that he was the holdup in these trades when he wasn't.
Yeah.
That is the holdup in getting Donovan Mitchell was not Tyler Herro. It was Bam Adebayo. Okay. That it was not Tyler Herro. It was that Donovan Mitchell was going to come down to play with Bam, and basically was like, no, you have to trade us, Bam. And that has come up over and over and over for them. It hasn't been about Herro. The one time that this became a conversation was related to Harden, and that wasn't even reported correctly. And I think some of this misreporting, which is fueled in part by the social media jersey swap crowd, it led to this idea that the Heat were just so wed to Tyler they wouldn't trade. And I see this all the time. Like, you see this on the NBA, the national posts and all this kind of, well, they wouldn't trade him for this guy. No. If it was about getting Donovan Mitchell and you were going to trade Tyler Herro for him, yes, they would have freaking done it. Okay. That's not what this was about. By the way, Herro's numbers last year are pretty similar to Donovan Mitchell's, but I'm not saying he's as good a player as Donovan Mitchell. I'm just saying the numbers were pretty similar. Okay. But that's the issue here, is that Heat fans have gotten it in their heads that the Heat's reluctance to move Tyler under any circumstances is what's kept them from getting these guys, when all of these circumstances have been different. Had nothing to do with not getting Durant. It had nothing to do with not getting Donovan Mitchell. It had nothing to do with not getting Dame. Okay. They were willing to offer Tyler for Dame. They were willing to offer him. Even the national reporting that Spears' report that they didn't really totally dispute about what was Tyler and 2 picks or something like that. It never got that far. Okay. So this is all, it's in my view, it's people who have preconceived notions about him one way or the other, and they are just and same as with Tua, they're incapable of any nuance, which is that this is a very good basketball player. Like, that is a very good quarterback. But if he is the guy that you're expecting to lead you, he's probably not going to be able to get you to the finish line. That's it. It's the same deal. Okay. But it has to be he sucks or he's the greatest player ever. And you cannot have a conversation about either of them on social media that is anyway productive. All right, Greg, appreciate it. We said we do 20 minutes. Check out our new sponsor, 1-800-305-PAIN. Appropriate. Have a good one.